Hey, Made in America listeners. Whether this is your first show or you've been with us for 5 years, thank you so much for joining us. Please spread the word about what we're doing and the great things that are happening in manufacturing with somebody you know.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I've got a close friend and four-time guest, Paul Lavoie. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ari. Thanks. Great to be back.
Yeah, man. Pleasure having you. Listen, I got to start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So what I make is a bright future for the manufacturing sector here in the state of Connecticut. My job is to make sure that I support and grow all 4,800 manufacturers and make sure that they're making the greatest products, high quality products, and providing people with life-changing opportunities. And why do? I do it because I love the state of Connecticut. I love manufacturing, and I just want to see Connecticut continue to do well and continue make Connecticut the greatest state in America to live, work, and play.
Man, well, that's a very lofty goals from the state's chief manufacturing officer. Maybe there's a run for governor behind there, but we'll leave that for a future episode.
Please leave that alone.
Yeah, I don't want to get the boss mad. Yeah, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, Paul. And I think before we sort of get into kind of the new manufacturing sort of plan, the revised plan that you've launched, because I think it's important that we sort of dig into that. I think it's been trimmed down. It's got really focused goals, really achievable targets that I think really move the needle for manufacturers in the state. So we got a lot of wood to chop there. But something that we were talking about in prep for the show that really surprised me, given the fact that many people I talked to say you're everywhere all at once, and the fact that you've been on the show several times. I mean, I've seen you up on stage as much as anybody, but yet apparently it turns out there's a number of manufacturers in Connecticut that don't know we have a chief manufacturing officer and don't know that you are the chief manufacturing officer. Yeah. Is that true? And how is that possible?
Yeah, it absolutely is true. And it's, there's 4,800 manufacturers, and when you think about it, I've toured 363. Now, that's a lot of manufacturers, but I do about 100 tours a year and then make those posts on LinkedIn, which means that it's going to take me another 44 years to get everybody. So
luckily you still got a nice spring in your step.
I do. But I think that, most manufacturers are just heads down, right? They're making their parts, they're doing their thing. They don't really, they're not looking at what government is doing or how government's paying attention or things like that. And then we haven't done anything to market to them. Like we haven't reached out. We haven't done any specific outreach to them, quite frankly, because we haven't had the systems to do that. Now we're making part of the strategic plan is to make those changes. And, we're launching some programs in the next couple of months that are really going to help us increase that engagement with manufacturers. But, as I was telling you, I'll go to a job fair. There'll be 20 manufacturers. I'll walk around and introduce myself, and at least 10 to 12 of them have no idea I existed. No idea they have a chief manufacturing officer, no idea what we do, no idea how we support the manufacturing sector. And the ones that do are generally the ones that are active in the sector and, ones that we would see as we go to events and go through the circles that we travel in. So, I would say, I used to say, 80% don't know. I'm now getting down to 75, 70% because I'm, every week I get somebody going, hey, I didn't know you existed, or,
check that one off the list.
I saw an article in Harvard Business Journal, and I didn't know we had a chief manufacturing officer, and so, but it's important. It's important that every manufacturer knows that they're supported and better than any other state in the union. So.
Yeah, listen, we're the first one to have a chief manufacturing officer, and no doubt, even if they don't know you, the stuff that you're working on and the state supporting is helping them in the background. Though, of course, if they engage, the help could be even all that much more. So I think the lesson for this is if you're listening to this, next time you see a manufacturer, make sure that they know Paul exists. And maybe we can get that 75 from this one episode. Let's get that thing down to like 65. Make a real some real dents.
Well, that'd be great. So
let's pivot to the plan. So you launched sort of the new manufacturing plan. I guess let's just start. First question. Why did you feel the need to do a new one, and how does it differ from the old one?
Sure. So when you look at kind of I'm entering my 4th year as the chief manufacturing officer, and the first 6 months of my first year was really just going out and meeting as many manufacturers as I can and listening to them. And when you start to listen to them, you get to understand what the themes are, and you get to understand kind of on a broader sense. And so we then started working on the first version of the strategic plan. And the basic components of the plan they stayed the same. It's really about workforce development, supply chain development, and innovation are really the 3 main issues. But as we started to understand what's in the manufacturing ecosystem and then also understand what was really critical for manufacturers, we really started to define our role. Like, what's our lane in the Office of Manufacturing? But more importantly, how can we amplify everybody else's lane? A big part of my job is driving collaboration, coordination, and communication amongst all of the stakeholders that are supporting the manufacturing sector. So version 2.0 is like a little cleanup. It was just really, hey, here's what we said we were going to do, and here's the results that we're getting. Version 3.0 is here's what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We now know at a very, very specific, targeted level what our lane is, and more importantly, what we have to do to move the needle and how we can leverage all the other programs and systems that are out there. And, so when you look at the plan, it really is designed around those key specific issues that manufacturers need us to focus on that nobody else was focusing on. And it also provides feeder systems to all the other infrastructure that's out there that's helping manufacturers. So we're really looking at it, for example, I look at workforce development, I call it K to gray. Right? I look at things systemically and how can I build systems that are going to help solve the problems today, but more importantly, these are systems that we're putting in place that, I'm an appointed official and my job is not in statute anywhere or anything like that. So I really have to look at not building infrastructure in state government, but building the infrastructure within the sector with all the nonprofits that we have to support to make sure they have the capability and capacity to continue to support the manufacturing sector 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. So
yeah, trying to keep that and build that.
Yeah.
So when you take a step back and look at this new plan,
yeah,
kind of give us the outlines of like the key thrusts of the plan.
Sure. So it's based on 4 components: developing talent, and we choose our words very, very carefully. Building sustainable companies, driving innovation, and then improving collaboration are the four components to the plan.
Let's do it one more time. Developing talent.
So it's developing talent, building sustainable companies, driving innovation, and improving collaboration.
There we go. And those are the 4 thrusts in the service of 2 key goals, right?
That's correct. So we have 2 key goals. We sat down and said, listen, what is it that we should be doing? Like, how are we going to measure our performance against this? And when manufacturing was in its heyday in Connecticut, it was 18% of the state's GDP. And then going through, the 1980s and 1990s, where we sent all the low value work out to China, and then going through the 2008, 2009 recession and all of that, where we hit our low of 10%. When I took this job and coming out of COVID, manufacturing was 10% of the state's economy. And I said, listen, I want to double that. I want to double it. I want to get Connecticut back to where our roots are and do a little bit better. And so the goal that we set in 2023 was to have manufacturing be 20% of the state's GDP by 2030. So it gave us kind of a 7-year runway to be able to grow. And then the second goal, really interesting, it started out as a job growth goal. And the day I wrote the goal, I knew it was a bad goal. I just knew it's one of those things where I'm like, why did you do that? Because
and I'm sure there's no shortage of people reminding you of that.
There is not. But when you're in the political environment, everybody likes to talk about job growth. But there are no people. There are no people to take these jobs. We have a labor shortage, and we're going to have a labor shortage for the next generations. And manufacturing has the unique position of being able to address our labor issues through technology. It's not a job replacement strategy. It's not a job elimination strategy at all. It's an upskilling and reskilling strategy that gives people more meaningful work by automating the less meaningful work. Mm-hmm. And so that we're not going to see job growth, but we are going to see wage growth. Right? And we are going to see more tax dollars being generated by these jobs, but we're not going to grow jobs. And you can see there's other industries that can do that too. Quick serve restaurants, right? Go to a McDonald's now and you've got a kiosk. right? Is it because they need to reduce labor costs? Maybe partially, but mostly it's because they can't hire people and they want to make the service, they want to be able to make the service they're giving you at a high level. Well, same in the manufacturing sector, right? We're just never going to have those people. That work needs to get done, and we really need to look at ways that we can drive efficiency in doing that. So now the goal is to get to full employment in the manufacturing sector.
Made in America is proudly presented by Compass MSP, the premier IT services provider. The Compass MSP approach blends our exceptional standards, dedicated people, advanced tools, strategic policies, and innovative techniques, offering a distinctive solution for managing our clients' IT requirements. Discover how Compass MSP can enhance your operations and strengthen your security with our comprehensive IT-managed, co-managed, cybersecurity, and compliance services. Visit us at compassmsp.com.
Yeah, well, listen, it comes down to productivity, right? So when you think about productivity, and you could take manufacturing, and we could take a quick serve restaurant, there's only a couple ways that you can improve productivity. You can either do more hamburgers or more widgets per person at the same cost, or you can raise the cost of the widget or the burgers, right? Or you can leverage technology so that I can make more with the same amount of labor, and that's what's going to drive wage growth, and that's what's going to really help people to get those like life-changing opportunities we talked about.
Yeah, and then the other thing is we're not a low-cost state. I mean, we have a high cost of labor, we have a high cost of energy, and our minimum wage is indexed, so it goes up every year. It's at $16.35 an hour, which, by the way, is not even a living wage in the state of Connecticut. I'm not sure that's a living wage in any state, but I would agree with you. But there are states out there that $7.25 is the minimum wage, and here's why innovation in Connecticut and what we do is our strategic advantage nationally. We've always been that way, right? We've always been high value, low volume. We've always been innovative. We've always had to really be the best at the best in driving manufacturing because it's not easy to do business in Connecticut because of those cost factors. If you're another state, Pennsylvania is a $7.25 minimum wage, you could always throw cheap labor at a problem when it was plentiful. You could say, hey, we got a manufacturing problem. Just hire 10 more people. Don't worry about it. $7.25 an hour. Just hire 10 more people. We never could do that in Connecticut, ever. We always had to say, how do we do it smarter, faster, and more efficient? Well, that's our DNA. Now when there's no people, the states that could throw cheap labor don't have that DNA, and they're struggling because they can't find the skilled workers to do that work. And in Connecticut, that's what we make. We make skilled workers. And so you're starting to see a lot of people look at Connecticut and say, my God, those people get things done, and they get them done in a cost-effective way. We got to start, we should start moving some work to those guys. The team at Advanced CT is busier than they have ever been with companies looking to come to Connecticut and companies that are growing and expanding here in the state. Everywhere I go, everybody's looking for a new building, looking to expand, looking to figure out how they can get more capacity through their existing facilities because they have the backlog.
And does that then lead to some jobs? Because you're always seeing manufacturing job openings. So where are those jobs, and why is that not adding to the total number of jobs?
Well, we're losing 3,000 people a month in the manufacturing sector, and we're adding 3,000 people a month. Right? So, and I tell people
losing them to
retirement, mostly retirement. Again, you have people that come into the sector, they don't like it. They go out. You talk to any manufacturer, they can say, listen, I can hire 20 people at the end of 6 months. If 5 of them stay, I'm lucky. It's an acquired taste, manufacturing, but once you acquire that taste, you don't want to go back and work in any other sector at all. The manufacturing sector is old. I mean, you go to manufacturing right now, you have either 55 plus groups or 25 and under groups. That whole 25 to 55 group never really had a big impact on manufacturing because that's the group that was told, don't go to work in manufacturing, don't go to work in the trades, go to college, get a college degree. And so we're undoing—
Get in a cubicle.
And we're undoing that. At the same time, the older generation is looking to retire. And so we've got to backfill that and we've got to be able to fill that gap with more younger people coming through. And so keeping even at 3,000, I think, is a pretty significant accomplishment. And I mean, I'd love to see job growth. I really would love to see job growth, but I think you're going to see different jobs growing. I think you're going to see a higher level of job. I just left the Lieutenant Governor's Computing Challenge. I think computer scientists in manufacturing are going to be the next big thing as we get into AI, as we get into automation, as we get into digital transformation. Engineers are wonderful people, but they're not data scientists. Right? They can fix things, but they can't interpret what the data is telling them to necessarily fix. And you know, with the advent of all the data that we have and what we're going to do with that data, you're going to see very different jobs in the manufacturing sector, where you're going to see when you start to talk about digital transformation, robotics and automation, and AI.
Yeah, listen, I actually think it's a really interesting opportunity. You know, it's speaking of not being cheap, those jobs are not inexpensive, and that talent's not inexpensive. But I think there's a really opportunity, quite honestly, and I don't know if it falls into your developing talent strategy, but there's a real, I think, interesting opportunity to offer up to data scientists, to some of those like folks that are working with like the IT level of process analysis, that you can look at, you know, machine learning and what people will call AI and stuff like that, where manufacturing offers those people something that a lot of the other jobs don't, which is you can actually see something being made or see the impact of what you're doing kind of in real life. I mean, it's maybe the ultimate draw of manufacturing to begin with. Like you said, when someone gets it and finds out that they enjoy it, there's really no other job that kind of can do it for you, right? There's not really much else we have aside from maybe like the wood shop in your garage, where you start with a thing and then through a series of processes, it comes out to be something else that's functional in some way. And it could be in any number of things, from food to rockets and anywhere in between. And so the opportunity for a data scientist to work on that, I think, is a really unique and interesting opportunity that can come up.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, manufacturing gives you that connection to the world, right? You can sit there and say, hey, this part that I made goes on this part that goes into the engine of an aircraft that is an Airbus airplane, right? And so, because it's a Pratt & Whitney engine on an Airbus airplane. And so when you get on an Airbus airplane, you're sitting there like, I made the plane.
I made this plane, yeah.
Exactly. We actually had a...
or at least I made the plane go.
Well, we actually had a guy that he worked at Pursuit Aerospace, and he had he was a barber, and he found manufacturing, got a job in manufacturing, turned his life around, was able to take care of his daughter, and he was taking his daughter to Disney World, and it was being filmed, and his daughter looked at him and said, "Daddy," she said, "when we get on the plane, are you going to tell the pilot you helped make it?" And he goes, "No, I don't think so." But his daughter understood what he did. She understood what he did, and she was 7, 8 years old. So it's I mean, listen, when I ran Carrier Manufacturing, every day I get up and walk the shop floor because I'm done looking at
spreadsheets and whatever.
Looking at financial statements and spreadsheets and purchasing and all this stuff. I need to go out and talk to the people making the products and touch the products and do that kind of stuff.
So when you think about the developing talent, I mean, one of the things is, even if we're not going to see sort of tremendous sort of job growth because of the increases in productivity and all that, which is still great, we still need to be generating talent, because to your point, we got to replace almost 40,000 workers a year just through, natural attrition and retirement. So what are the strategies that we have today to make sure that we're filling that pipeline, and how are you measuring that success?
Yeah, so there's 3 things we're focused on. First is inspiring the next generation of manufacturing workers, and we're doing that in a whole bunch of different ways. So we have the I Got It Made campaign, which is a marketing campaign targeted at parents. And now let's make it here, right? Yeah. So they're all tied together. They're all tied together. The state's tagline is "Make it here." Ours is "I Got It Made," so you can make it here. But it's all targeted at parents of young people, and so it's all designed around to get them to consider manufacturing careers. We did a study because we thought young people thought manufacturing careers were dark, dirty, and dangerous, and didn't want to go into the manufacturing because of the perception they had of manufacturing. What we found is that young people have zero perception of manufacturing. They have no connection that everything that sits around them was made by somebody.
Wait. You're saying the whole lean, it's lean, green, and clean, not dark, dirty, and dangerous, really was missing it all together.
Missed it all together.
It was like we don't even know it exists. This stuff, these things in my house just show up from somewhere.
We had
out of space.
an entire generation that thought things magically appear in an Amazon warehouse, shipped to their house. So
everything's 3D printed.
Everything is just shipped to their house. Because they've never seen it. They've never been exposed to it. They've never, it just never was in their consciousness. And when we started to talk to them about what manufacturing was, we saw this level of interest. And then when we started talking to parents about manufacturing careers, you could see them go, that's really interesting. I had parents come up to me at student parent nights going, is it too late to get a career in manufacturing? I'm like, no,
not at all. Not at all.
Kate Gray, come on, we'll get you into the sector. So we're investing a lot in meeting kids where they are to basically show people who look like them that are very successful in the manufacturing sector. And that, the I Got It Made campaign is just, we've had 31 million impressions in a 9-month period across the state of Connecticut, across all of our platforms. And just raising the profile and having kids get interested about it.
It's almost like 10 impressions for every.
There's 3 million. Right? There's 3 million residents, and the lookbook downloads. So we have a lookbook, a manufacturing lookbook that's in the guidance office of every single high school. We're seeing 7,000 downloads in that same time period of the lookbook.
How much do you think housing or the need for more housing, especially like sort of starter housing, impacts the ability for those people that get interested to be able to sort of get their life going?
Well, here's the issue with housing, right? So if we take these young people and we get them interested in careers and interested in staying in Connecticut, we need what's called workforce housing. Right? Mm-hmm. Every town and city in this state should ban the word affordable housing. Just ban it, because it brings up this negative connotation. But if you do workforce housing, by the way, it's the same thing. But if you do workforce housing, if you say workforce housing, everybody says, oh, workers, people who work, I like them. I want them in my town. But you have to meet the needs of young people. And in the manufacturing sector, it's really kind of interesting because the people that we attract are the tinkerers and the people who like to work with their hands and things like that. So they need to have garage spaces. They need to have places where they can have shops at their house and things like that. Part of the problem is because of the current financial situation, people are holding on to their homes longer. Yeah. If I had a 2% mortgage, why am I going to sell my house and get a 7% mortgage? And we're not going to be able to build that kind of housing stock because there's not a lot of land. You're not going to see, like in the 1950s, there's ranches built all over, all over West Hartford here, all the ranch houses and stuff that was done post-World War II. But what we are going to see is we're going to see housing that can get them started that is going to be within their budget, right? And so you start to see, and especially this generation of young people are communal. They love to be able to, if they have to go to work, not work from home. If they have to go to work, which you have to do in manufacturing, they want to be able to come back to a community. They want to be able to come back where they can almost play and live in that same type of community. So you're starting to see apartment complexes go up that have these amenities, have where young people can join with each other. They can do all of that. I mean, every mall in the state should be converted into apartments with, retail on the first floor and, movie theaters and parks and music and, all this kind of stuff so you have to really understand what they want. But at some point in time, they're going to move from that when they have a couple of kids into regular stock housing. And hopefully by then we'll have some turnover in a housing market. But it's a challenge. I mean, the housing shortage is a national challenge. But in Connecticut, we're investing in, you go anywhere, you're going to see housing going up. And yes, it's going vertical because we don't have a lot of land to go horizontal. And if you're a developer, if you build apartments, it's great. In downtown Hartford, the apartments they're building in downtown Hartford sold out before they're finished, and a lot of them are engineers that we're hiring to work at Pratt & Whitney and things like that. So I think that the way we're approaching housing is smart, but again, it's one of these problems that's going to take, 5, 6, 10 years to be able to solve, but we're started. We're making that process. We're making inroads. And so we have to have what they want today, but we also have to be cognizant of what they're going to want 10 years from now when they start their families and they start looking at towns and education systems and things like that. And so, we have to make sure from a housing perspective we have all that in place. And I think we've got a plan to a good start. Yeah.
So, the things you had talked about was building sustainable companies.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people would say, what the government's best role in building sustainable companies is getting out of the way.
Yeah.
What's your take on what your role and how government can help support building sustainable companies?
So I spent a lot of time on that, right? So, and you're right. I think the best thing government can do is let people do what they do best. I tell all of our manufacturers, there's two things I want you to do. I want you to make amazing products, and I want you to give people life-changing careers. And anything that gets in your way that I can fix, I want to know about it so that I can make it easy for you to do what you do best, right? So that's the role of government. The role of government is not to make it harder for businesses to do business. It's to make it easier for businesses to do what they do best. And so that's really what we're focused on when we talk about building sustainable companies. There's two things. How can I help companies grow their revenue streams? What is it that I can do to give them opportunities to grow revenue? And then what can I do to cut the cost of doing business in the state? So let me take the revenue side. We're doing things like we invited Airbus to come in because Airbus came to us and said, listen, we're not meeting the demand for airplanes, and it's our supply chain, and you have the best aerospace supply chain in the world. We want to bring our buyers in to meet with your companies to give them work to help us. So we brought Airbus, and the president and CEO of Airbus, happens to live in Connecticut, which is nice, came up. The governor was there, and Airbus brought all their buyers in from across the country, and they set up one-on-one meetings with our aerospace suppliers to do business with them. We brought NASA, and this is all sponsored by the Office of Manufacturing in partnership with the ACM, CCAT, Constep, U.S. Commercial Service.
Sounds like collaboration.
Yeah, it's a big tent and it's a big party, but it's amazing how well we all work together. And so we did the same thing with NASA, and we brought NASA in. We have Apex Accelerators that helps with doing business with the government and large government contractors. And NASA literally brought in their tier one suppliers, and they brought in their supplier development people to say, hi, here's my card. Call me. I'll set up a meeting with you to talk to you about how you can become a supplier at Northrop Grumman or Boeing or SpaceX, or go through the list. And you're sitting there, and the salespeople sitting in the audience just cut 2 years off their sales cycle because there's no way they're getting to these people ever, by trying to, cold call or whatever it is that they're doing. And here they are sitting right in front of them saying, no, I want to talk to you. I want to see what you're qualified for. And I want to onboard you as a vendor if you can meet our needs. We're doing an aerospace and defense show in November, and it's the same thing. Pratt & Whitney's the lead on it. Pratt & Whitney will bring all their buyers, but we'll have international companies coming in to tap into the supply chain. And it's not a trade show. It's you make prearranged one-on-one meetings, buyer to buyer, or buyer to seller, and you sit there and say, "These are my capabilities," and they're like, "Wow, that's interesting. We're looking for this capability. Let's start a relationship." So that's where I think government plays a great role in facilitating those, because ACM's not going to be able to do that. ACM can do it in partnership. See, I have this distinct advantage and Connecticut has a distinct advantage by being the only state with chief manufacturing officer, also having the Manufacturing Innovation Fund. So I have money.
Right.
So, which is great, right? So they can come to me and say, Paul, we want to do this. And I'll say, great. What do we need to do it? I think we need $500,000. I'll go to the board and say, hey, we want to do $500,000 to do an aerospace and defense show to help grow the aerospace industry. Colin Cooper, the guy that I followed in this job, said that the Airbus meeting was the best thing he's ever done in aerospace in the state of Connecticut. Thought it was amazing that we did that.
Really?
Yeah. And so, but those are the kinds of opportunities. Now, we would never have had that opportunity if I didn't go to Seattle and then meet with the head of supplier development at Airbus at a show in Seattle and just sit down and talk to him, and then him say, hey, listen, we want to do this. And we're like, we got it. Come, what do you need? And put together the team to do all of that. And so those are some of the things on that side of the business. And we're working in the shipbuilding industry as well. We want to do that in shipbuilding, aerospace shipbuilding, number one, number two.
Yep.
We're number one in the country in airplane engine and airplane parts manufacturing, number two in the country in shipbuilding. And then again, we're doing that in other areas as well. We have a supplier connection, which brings in companies like Medtronic and other companies. So if you're doing business in the medical supply chain, we're doing buyer meetings in those areas. And
So you guys are really investing in creating opportunities that allow the businesses to grow for themselves. So it's really like, not really trying to get involved in like the old, hey, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help, and let me tell you what to do and how to do it. It's really about saying, hey, let's put great manufacturers with great capabilities and great products in front of people that probably want to buy some of those products and help kind of make those relationships or opportunities for those relationships to happen.
In our Connects Marketplace database platform, right? It's a nationwide platform, has 165,000 manufacturers in there, and any Connecticut manufacturer has access to build your profile and your capabilities at no additional cost. And you get concierge level service in building out your profile on that platform. Why do you want to do that? There are 300 buyers in that platform today looking for suppliers, including Northrop Grumman, Bell Textron. They won the helicopter contract, not Sikorsky. They're looking for helicopter suppliers. I can go, U.S. Army is in there. Blue Forge Alliance is going to take on the platform. Northrop Grumman, John Deere, Siemens. I mean, all these diverse companies all have buyers in that platform looking for suppliers. And now we have our large manufacturers adopting that platform to build out their supply chains as well. So RTX is in that platform looking for suppliers. You know where the 3 buyers that are using that platform are located? Florida, Texas, and Virginia. They're not even in, Pratt & Whitney's right here in Connecticut, but their buyers are remote and they're looking for suppliers on a national basis. But of course, they're looking in Connecticut. And there's 4,800 manufacturers, there's 585 that have filled out their profiles in Connects Marketplace. People,
we got to get out there and do more.
You want new business.
This is a place to go get it.
Building all these platforms for you to be able to get new business and to be found, and then you can use it to grow your own supply chain.
Made in America is brought to you by Compass MSP, a national leader in cybersecurity and IT services. It's our mission to help businesses realize a competitive advantage by harnessing the power of IT technology. Compass MSP will help you reach your business goal. Visit us at compassmsp.com.
Triumph, right here in West Hartford, great company. We met with all their supply chain people and we sat down and said, give us a problem. Tell us what you're looking for. And they were looking for a company that can do CAT scanning, right? Which is kind of a non-destructive testing. They couldn't find it. They kept getting hospitals when they did their Google search.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Right? And so we said, okay, let's go into the platform. And actually one of the buyers said, well, aren't we just going to get hospitals? And we looked at each other like, oh, you don't know. This is just manufacturers. Like there's nobody in there. Found a company in Vermont. Now, ideally, I'd love to find a company in Connecticut, but this was a serious problem for Triumph. The director of supply chain looked at the buyer and said, this is on a Friday afternoon. Monday, you're going to Vermont and qualify that supplier. And looked at us and said, do you know how long we've been looking for that? Do you know how long? And we're like, well, just,
Like he used the Connects Marketplace.
This is the power of the tool, right? And so it's we provide the tools for people to use. I will tell you, one of my single biggest frustrations is the lack of adoption of the tools that we provide for people.
Well, it just comes back to the awareness campaign that we talked about. So, tell a friend, let's get people on it. I think that's really great. You said something earlier I just want to pull on real quick.
Yeah.
Number 2 in shipbuilding, obviously very, very big in submarines. Yeah. Do you see an opportunity to expand beyond sort of the sub fleet, or is that really kind of where we are?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Is that even worth it? I guess would be another question.
I think our lane is around submarines. We've got to get to 1+2+ AUKUS, which is 1 Columbia class, 2 Virginia class, and support the Australian, UK, US. And we got to get that on an annual basis now, and to get to that level, and so I think that's our focus right now. I mean, we do have some other shipbuilding capabilities. I mean, we have a deep water port in Bridgeport that's underutilized, where there is some shipbuilding work being done there, but we're not going to build aircraft carriers in Connecticut or anything like that. I think there can be a commercial shipbuilding industry that certainly could grow because we have the ports to be able to do that. New London right now is being consumed with offshore wind, but based on what's happening at the federal government, 2027, 2028, we're going to be looking at how we can best utilize that. Bridgeport's underutilized. New Haven's generally at full utilization with oil and aviation fuel and all of that. I learned that we actually have a pipeline from New Haven to Bradley with aviation fuel.
That's right. Yeah, I was aware.
It's like we just pump it in New Haven, then we just
put it right to the planes. Exactly.
91 or something.
Yeah. I think it's overground a little bit there too.
I'm sure it is too. But
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We got a lot of wood to chop in or I guess metal to bend in submarines. So let's stay focused there. So I want to touch on a few things before we get out of time. We talked about driving innovation. Yeah. And is that sort of a similar approach to the building of sustainable companies, or how do you think about the ability to drive innovation? And it's a critical item. I mean, we've talked before that Connecticut's lane to success is through innovation, right? It's through high tech, it's through high quality, it's through continual drive for efficiency and effectiveness. It's going to allow us to have the highest paid manufacturing jobs, to make the best and the coolest stuff, and be competitive in a world where, due to all the different constraints, we don't have $7 an hour labor or 7 cents per kilowatt hour power. So when you think about driving innovation, what is that, and what's the role of the manufacturing office in doing so?
Yeah, so we've identified 4 areas that we wanted to focus on that we think are going to have the maximum impact in the sector, and Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology is laser focused in these 4 areas. Mm-hmm. And we talk about building sustainable companies. The first thing we need to talk about is the digital transformation. If you talk about efficiency and cost efficiency and driving cost out of the business, moving from a paper-based traveler system, going full digital and taking native digital files from your supplier, from your OEM, and having it go all the way through your system digitally and then all the way back digitally is such an incredible saver from a cost perspective, but quality goes up and delivery goes up, right? So lower cost, better quality, better delivery. That's the holy trinity.
That's the name of the game.
That's the holy trinity of manufacturing.
So digital
transformation, additive manufacturing, another area, right? We're never gonna replace tool makers, and we're using additive to do the tooling, and we're seeing significant results there. Robotics and automation, again, automating things that we can't get people to do or that are repetitive, and then of course AI. Right, we can't have any discussion about innovation and technology without AI.
So those are 4 critical areas. Is CCAT really the tip and the spear as far as helping to drive that when it comes?
Yeah, so 3 of the 4 are CCAT, right? So digital transformation, additive, and robotics and automation. When it comes to AI, it's more of a whole of state approach. You have the Quantum and AI Council with Yale and UConn. UConn is one of the finalists for a Smart Manufacturing Institute on AI. So they're one of 4 finalists from the National Science Foundation and from NIST for a federal grant, a significant federal grant with significant state match to have a Institute for Smart Manufacturing in Connecticut around AI. So you're going to start, AI is going to be not just in one area. We're working in lots of different areas to make sure we have the right focus on AI. But on the other 3, it's CCAT. We fund programs at CCAT. They have grant programs there. Any manufacturer that wants to go any one of those 3 journeys has to go to CCAT.
CCAT, message received. And fostering collaboration in and outside the sector. Talk about that, right? I mean, we spent a lot of time already talking about awareness. Collaboration starts with awareness, so we know we got to up that. What else are you thinking about when you think about collaboration, and what's your role in fostering?
I can just give you a great example. So we're talking about the maritime industrial base, and we talk about workforce in the maritime industrial base and the submarine industrial base, and really taking a look at a whole of state approach to making sure that we have the workforce that we need to meet the demands of the Navy as it relates to submarine building. So we're doing this project called Rising Tides, and it is everybody is in the room. So the chief workforce officer, all the workforce boards, all the RSPs, all of the folks that are doing workforce development, Synidia, which is the Southern New England group, Electric Boat is in the room, Blue Forge Alliance is in the room. We've gotten everybody in the room, and then we're starting to bring in the supply base to say, what are your needs as it relates to workforce development, and how do we programmatically and systematically solve those challenges? And that's the kind of collaboration we've never seen in this state. I mean, we have, Eastern Workforce Board does their own thing, and this Workforce Board does their own thing, and then we got this over here, and this association, that, everybody doing their own thing. And they're driving impact, but they're not doing it at scale. And by getting all of the folks in the room to say, it's 1 + 2 + AUKUS, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal, folks. And we have to get there and understand what that means to Connecticut's economy and understand that what that means to us as far as funding from the Navy and money flowing in here. Understand that we're all together in this. So how are we all going to get in the same boat and start rowing together? That's why you won't see workforce development in my plan, because we have a chief workforce officer and we have an office of workforce strategy. Now, I just had breakfast with Kelly this morning where we were talking about what we're both working on and how we make sure that we support each other, and that I'm feeding people into her system and she's working that system to get them out, rather than me trying to say I do workforce and her do my stuff. But it's very intentional for us to be able to do that. And so it takes a long time. You have to build trust. You have to go out and start talking to people and building trust and do things like that. And then you have to show the confidence in them. So the Office of Manufacturing is 3.5 people. But yet we run 40 different programs, $45 million budget, because we put all of the capacity within the ecosystem. So we fund CCAT, we fund Constep, we fund Forge, we fund Ready CT, we fund all of these groups to handle all the programs for us. We support 53 different jobs in the manufacturing ecosystem that are not state government jobs, right? They're jobs in the nonprofit sector, so economic growth and development, through the way that we approach our philosophy of don't build infrastructure in government, build infrastructure into the ecosystem, because that'll last longer. I was actually talking to a bunch of other states about what we do in Connecticut, and Ohio. A guy from Ohio says to me, "That's Connecticut's philosophy." I said, "No, time out. That's not Connecticut's philosophy. That's my philosophy." I said, "I can't say Connecticut does that across the board, but I can tell you that I won't build infrastructure in state government. I will build capacity and capability in the ecosystem, because that will last.
Yeah,
that will last. Government, as we saw on January 20th, changes."
Yes, no, for sure. And look, the bottom line is this: is that if you want to build sustainable companies and you want to grow the GDP, like we talked about, you have to build the infrastructure and the capabilities and the capacity in the private sector, in the industrial supply base. Otherwise, we're really not doing anything except maybe building the overhead. And so that's fantastic.
I do handoffs all day. I just basically say, someone comes to me and says, "I have a problem." I go, "Here's who's going to solve your problem." Manufacturing A, meet CCAT, boom, and I'm done. And what we've done is each one of those organizations,
it's a little matchmaker. We should change change your title there.
But each one of those organizations has a concierge, and those concierges have been trained to support each other. So if you go to CCAT and you have a challenge that CCAT can't solve, but they know Constep will, CCAT will make an introduction for you to Constep. They don't need me, right? And then Constep will make an introduction to Ready CT, because that's where the expertise lies. And so we've created that structure in such a way that said, I'm only going to refer my customers, the manufacturers, to one person at your company, at your place, and then they're going to navigate the journey through CCAT. So it's Eileen Candles, Bernice Zampano, Deb Presby, right? Trinell Ball at Forge. Those are the concierges. They navigate people through their organizations, and when they get a question they can't answer, they go, "Oh, I got a partner. I'm going to introduce you to Bernice," and Bernice picks them up and takes them through the whole thing and does that as well. And so we've invested a lot of time in getting all of those people to trust each other, to know that we're all doing the same thing, which is we're serving the 4,800 manufacturers to get to 20% of the state's GDP. And we know when we get to 20% of the state's GDP that we're going to have an economy that's going to be one of the best economies in the world, certainly in the United States. We're going to be providing wonderful job opportunities for people all across the spectrum, right? Connecticut is the land of equal opportunity. We're not all born equal, but boy, we sure have the opportunity to get to where we want to be in life. And we're putting, in the manufacturing sector, we're putting all that infrastructure in place so that if you want to have an amazing career making some of the most important things in the world, you can do it right here in Connecticut.
Paul, I'm going to leave it there. That you couldn't have said it better. There's so much to learn. What I will just ask is, if people want to look at the plan, if they want to, we said tell a manufacturer, tell 5. Let's get people to know. Where do we send them to be able to look?
There's two things you can do. Well, first off, the website is manufacturing.ct.gov. So if you go to manufacturing.ct.gov, go there. You can see all of our plans. We have the plan for full employment, which is called Make It Here 2030. We have the strategic plan, and we also also have this offshore wind strategic roadmap that are there as well. So those things are there as well. But the other thing that you can do is you can become a manufacturing ambassador. So we created a manufacturing ambassador program. So if you go to mfgambassador.com and you register to become an ambassador, you get information fed to you on a regular basis of what's happening in the manufacturing sector. And we're in the process right now of redoing that entire program so that you can actually earn points when you do something that supports manufacturing. And then we can rank whether you're the top ambassador, second ambassador. We're going to give out swag and stuff like that. So we got some cool plans. So go to manufacturing.ct.gov or become a manufacturing ambassador at mfgambassador.com.
There we go. I like it. One thing we didn't get to was the solution for energy. So the next time you're on,
all right,
we're talking about that. Paul Lavoie, Connecticut's Chief Manufacturing Officer. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Ari, thanks. Absolutely great to be here again.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.